Welcome to the 7 Cents Podcast, where we go beyond dollars and cents to unlock the mindset beyond the money.
What's up, everybody? It's your boy Mike Macklin, aka Money Mike, the financial Thanos, because I'm snapping my fingers and I'm turning your financial problems to dust.
And I'm Coach R.L, your money mindset coach. Mind right, money right, legacy locked in.
Guys, this is not your average financial podcast. We're breaking down money myths, mindset traps, and economic game plans.
We keep it real, raw, and relevant, from micro money moves to macro financial shifts.
This is a 7 Cents podcast where your mind meets your money.
Hey, welcome back to the 7 Cents. I'm here with Money Mike, my co-host. We want to cook on, again, another controversial topic, and I want to jump right into this thing, Mike. You know how we get down. So we've been told that you need to save 3 to 6 months of your expenses in order for an emergency. We're going to talk about emergency funds. Do you think emergency funds build a level of scarcity mindset when we talk about financial planning? I'll just ask you that question off top.
Okay. And to answer that question, yes, it really does, because it puts in your head, or it introduces the idea of you basically preparing for something bad to happen. Like, you're already putting yourself in like this negative mindset. Okay, life is about to just be bad. I need to prepare for that. And psychologically speaking, that actually can carry over into a lot of portions of your life. When you're constantly living in a place of fear, it's going to affect a lot of things, and your money is going to follow your thought processes, unfortunately. So if you're already approaching your money in this scared, I have to prepare, the sky is falling mentality, your strategy on finance overall is going to follow that same pathway. And that, I feel like, is the problem with the emergency fund and the seed that it plants into your mind. So let's rock kind of from there. That's my answer to that one.
I like it. I think we're going to turn this shit into first take. I love it. I think it would behoove you to have an emergency fund, but in the same concept, you need to separate the scarcity mindset from the emergency fund. And now this means we could probably call it something different. Let's not call it an emergency fund. Let's call it a different plan of action. But if you plan for doomsday probably gonna happen, right? Because then now we're starting to talk about manifesting bad things. But realistically, life does happen. Your tire does go out. Your refrigerator will crash on you. If you're a homeowner, your plumbing will back up. But at the same time, you have to separate the mindset from the strategy. Now, when you go into this and you don't have the appropriate mindset, you're going to adapt a mindset with a strategy. That's exactly what you said. Hey, you're going in with the mindset that something's bad is going to happen. However, if you specifically plan, and I don't think, let's be honest, with this mindset, bad shit is going to happen to you. Now, how catastrophic, we don't know. But in retrospect, I'm playing with this mic like a mug.
Right. I'm like,
but in retrospect, right, your tires happen. Right? The wash machine, it happens. So having maintenance fund makes more sense than having an emergency fund. I do believe that emergency style fund should be built into your plan. However, adding emergency to the word changes the entire definition and mindset. And when you put bad energy in the air, it got to go somewhere, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Let's kind of outline the Dave Ramsey perspective of this. And this is not bashing, because I still believe that it is applicable. In fact, I had a conversation with someone last night who had, I can give his story. So the story is this young man was a contractor, and I'm talking to him and I said, oh, you a contractor? That contractor life must be good. And I just allude to, when you transition from being in the military to contracting, it usually is lucrative. And he says, I wouldn't say that. After we had those executive orders come out, I actually lost my job while I was on my way home from work, and they pulled my contract. And I was like, damn. But he says, luckily I had a plan. And it wasn't, he said, luckily I had some emergency funds saved for 3 to 6 months. But no, he had some funds that he was doing some things with, and he knew that he would eventually need to access those funds. He just accessed them sooner than later. And so that's why we talk a little bit about strategy, and then how does your strategy change with your mindset, I think is the real question. But back to the Dave Ramsey, we were taught to save 3 to 6 months in order to be able to live off of. Initially, start with $1,000 so you can pay for the tire in the washing machine, like we talked about. Where do you think that money should go as you're saving it? I think really is a question that the people want to know. And then we'll dive back into the mindset. But I think the first question is, so if you're telling me to save this $1,000 and you're telling me to save this 3 to 6 months, where should I put it?
Okay. That's actually an awesome question. And so to begin to answer that, what I want people to understand is, again, we have to get away from this scarcity mindset. We have to get into a strategic mindset. Everything that you do with your money is part of a bigger plan. And that's how you have to start looking at your money. And the emergency fund is like the foundation of that initial plan. So what you want to do with that emergency fund is, first off, stop calling it that. I call it phase one. That's what I call it. I call it phase one of the overall strategy. And I've even taught my nephew this. Taught him because he just started working about a year and a half ago, and he was trying to figure out, okay, what do I do with my money? What should I be doing? So that is what I told him. As the first phase, you want to start putting some of that aside to just basically have something as a buffer. It's a part of your overall budget. That's the first thing that I want people to understand. You want to start looking at this as a allocation of funds. You don't want to look at it as, okay, I'm getting ready for emergencies. This is just how you allocate your money, or the job a portion of your money have, because you got to treat your dollars like employees, and all of them got jobs. So X amount of those employees are going to be basically to just, hey, to cover life's unexpectancies. What I would honestly do along with this whole, godly, I got to get this out of my head because it's just so in there. It's so in there. Dave Ramsey did an excellent job of planting that into everybody's head, that whole calling it an emergency fund. But what you have to do alongside of that allocation is you have to look at the return you're going to get on that. So if I was going to, and I tell my nephew this, I said, you're going to have this money. That's a part of your budget. But what you want to do is you want to make sure that it's doing something decent for you. So a direction I would look is a high yield savings account. What you want to do is you want to have that money making more than the traditional savings account. Right now, a traditional savings account is disrespectful how much money you actually get for that. And without getting too far into the rule, it's a rule called the rule of 72. Once you understand the rule of 72, you'll understand how disrespectful that whole bank percentage of what they give you on your savings is. But with that in mind, this is how you strategically plan as well. Getting back to the topic, I would put that money into a high yield savings account. You can go online and you can go on places like NerdWallet or something like that to find good high yield savings accounts, to where, you're getting, instead of the traditional, man, it's going to sound horrible when I say this, but it's the truth, like 0.1% or 0.01%, sometimes like next to nothing. With a high yield savings, sometimes they can give you as much as 4%, which is a much more competitive, much better return on that investment. You'll actually see some growth a lot more quickly than putting it into 0.01. And the reason why this makes so much more sense is because of inflation. If you just put your money in a regular savings account, inflation is going to eat that up like that. So essentially you're losing money. So that becomes the real problem with these emergency savings and things like that, is realistically, you're not gaining money. You're actually losing money because it's not working for you, and inflation is basically dwindling that down. So my alternative would be, first and foremost, put that into a high yield savings account to where at least it's somewhat keeping up with, or if not outpacing inflation even a little bit.
No, that's good. We're going to turn this into first take again. I will bring this up as a question. I think high yield savings account is ideal. But when we look at the bigger picture of this, do you feel like, and I would just say, I feel like, yes, it definitely should, phase one, go into a high yield savings account. But when we start to talk about this 3 to 6 months that is safe, is it possible that because we are taking less of a risk with this large amount of money, that we stand to lose by not being aggressive in investing it?
Say that question one more time for me so I can process again.
I got you. So let's say we talk about saving 3 to 6 months of expenses. For me,
Okay.
that looks like $30,000 to $40,000, right? Now, if I stick this into a high yield savings account, where it's at, it is 4 to 5% over year. And let's say I leave it in there for 4, 5, 6 years. Do I stand to lose money by not being aggressive and putting that in maybe an S&P index, or maybe putting it directly into a stock or a platform where I know I can get 10%, 15%, 20% within volatility?
Okay. No, I see the point, and yeah, I understand it exactly. Yeah, it would definitely be. I think I had that a little bit further in the episode for me, but yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
I would, yeah, because you, especially if you don't have debt. Like if you don't have any debt, that's a much better place to put that money because you're making more on it. And something that you can do is you can actually borrow against that money, which like these richy people do, and that's how they don't pay taxes on it as well. You have this money in the market, you take loans out against the stock or whatever to do what you need to do. And obviously the asset is appreciating higher than maybe the percentage of the loan that you took out on it. So it's still making money even while you pull it out and do what you need to do. Yeah, absolutely. And then again, 8% versus 4%, that you'd be stupid not to take that. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. You definitely want that as a better option, especially if you don't have any debt.
I like where this is going. I want to caveat. So this does definitely depend on your age, background, dynamic. So as we talk about these things, a person may not have that type of flexibility to put their money into volatile platforms. I would also venture to say that you do, again, like me, have to look at your family dynamic. Am I willing to put my savings into the market when it could crash? Probably not, because I everybody can't pile up at my grandma's house. If it's just me and I got 1 or 2 babies, we can pile up at my grandma's house.
Right.
I got 7 people in this house, then 8 people in this house with me. It ain't gonna happen that way. So my strategy is gonna be a little bit different.
Oh,
But
absolutely.
again, this kind of goes back to the scarcity mindset, though. Does the things that I have going on limit me from being aggressive in my portfolio? Absolutely not. It doesn't, because I'm still relatively young, 40, and I also have a strategy and a pot of money that I can focus to be aggressive with. Now, that ain't for everybody, but you got to at least have a plan and a mindset before you get started with anything. Let me ask you, have you ever seen any failures in conventional emergency plans, emergency savings plans? And tell me about it.
Okay, absolutely. And it's funny because I actually had a conversation with somebody 2 days ago about this. When you and I'm going to use the example of, let's say you got high interest debt out there and you trying to do this whole emergency fund thing. Okay, so let's talk about that for a little bit. Let's even use the example of, okay, we got this high yield, we putting it in a high yield account, so we getting 4%. Okay, so now let's compare apples to oranges here. Let's say, okay, your high interest debt, because that's exactly what it is. This credit card debt is on average, I think the average credit card debt, interest rate right now is about 15 to 20% versus this 4% that you putting into emergency savings account. Essentially what you're doing when you do that, you're now losing money because that 20% versus that 4%, the gain that you getting versus the gain that the bank is getting is horrible. Like it's 5 to 1, you know what I'm saying, ratio there. So for every $1 you putting over there to the side, the bank is getting 5. A lot of people, they ask me like question like about investing versus paying off debt. And I would even extend that to this emergency fund thing. It's okay, if you got a bunch of debt hanging over the top of your head, like putting money to the side is not going to help the situation, because again, the interest rate is killing you. Like, it's making it worse and worse and worse and worse. And so you got money over to the side over here. What's going to end up happening is you're going to have to use that money to cover just paying off that debt. And so now you've defeated the purpose of even having an emergency fund, because again, you lost in the interest rate, and then you also lost in the fact that you can't cover your general life expenses because you're trying to put money to the side and take care of this debt, and the math just ain't mathing. So that's my real life examples. I had a conversation with somebody about that. They argued the point of the two. Should you be putting money to the side, or should you be attacking debt? And I'm like, looking at the percentages, it makes more mathematical sense to just go ahead and take care of that debt than to be sitting there worrying about stockpiling money that's not really working for you.
Oh, definitely. I believe that without a strong strategy, you can get lost in the sauce, and especially in this quick information timeline. Like, you don't know how much I get when I sit down with a client and they tell me about a goddamn YouTube, something that they seen, or TikTok or reel. I seen in this one reel that they said you can put all of your money into an IUL, and I said, did they tell you how long it take you for you to get that money out of there? And they look at me like I'm crazy. And I'm like, I can sell you an IUL. If you want an IUL, I'm a licensing agent. However, it ain't gonna work the way you think it work. You ain't got all that information. If it take me 2 or 3 meetings to explain to a person what they're getting out of an IUL, you not about to learn that in 30 seconds on a TikTok video. I say all of that to say your strategy has to be different. Let's talk a little bit about some smart strategies that can be applicable. You already mentioned one, which is the high yield savings account. Looking at using a high yield savings account, this is definitely going to help you not fall into debt if an emergency happens. But have we considered, I know we talked about this on a previous episode, but have we not considered the equity in our home as an emergency fund? What is your feelings on using like a HELOC or something like that to cover an emergency, as opposed to actually using funds or an emergency fund instead? What are your thoughts on that?
Okay, so I love it. First and foremost, any line of credit, realistically. And before I get into this, let me put out a caveat. Let me put out a disclaimer. One, you have to know what you're doing.
Yes.
You have to know what you're doing.
About strategy.
So when I tell you this, listen, don't get mad at me if you F this up. I was gonna say the F word, but I'm just gonna say, if you F this up, do not blame Money Mike for this, because again, Rob is a financial planner. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not a financial planner. So I cannot legally tell you to do something, and you can't take me to court if what you do doesn't work for you. So that's the freedom I have. I can say what I want. You can't sue me because I'm not licensed. So with that being said, the HELOC to me, or any line of credit, can realistically replace that emergency fund. And what I mean by that is, you can now leverage that money. Rob said, let's say an emergency comes up, and instead of you sitting there hoarding money and it's not doing anything, you can leverage that home equity line of credit. Now, there's an actual strategy out there. I'm not going to get too deep into it because we're talking about the emergency fund, but there's an actual strategy where basically the HELOC or line of credit or whatever, and I actually use this, it basically replaces both your checking and your savings account as a tool and a debt weapon. Again, I won't get too deep into that right now because again, this is higher level financial stuff, but the HELOC is actually an excellent tool to use and leverage, to where you're not tying up so much money or wasting a bunch of time trying to stack up this money when you already can use the equity in your home as like a buffer, as a airbag of sorts. Utilized properly, I'm gonna keep saying that, utilized properly, a HELOC is a excellent replacement for that emergency fund.
Yep. And again, that also comes into strategy and knowing your stuff, knowing the equity that you have in your home, knowing what that looks like for your debt management plan, because at the end of the day, it is a line of credit. It does need to be paid back, can be paid back over time. It may shift to change in your budget, but it is definitely a strategy. And I just say eye-opening strategy. Not to say go out here, get a HELOC, and then to let that be your emergency fund. I'm just saying, hey, you can use that as a line of credit to get to where you need. So let's discuss how some people are taught that to hold on to every dollar while others are taught to make money moves. Let's talk a little bit about the mindset and the scarcity to close out the show. Are people really prepping for crisis, or are they just planning progressively? Like, how do we discern the two? And then what is your advice to avoid the scarcity and then prepare for like true money mindset?
Okay.
It's a lot to unpack.
It definitely is a lot to unpack. We talked about this at the top of the show where we talked about the mindset. And honestly speaking, that is the killer right now. And the emergency fund is like the epitome of that crutch. I'm gonna call it a crutch in the mindset of the average person, because this is unfortunately what the average person is taught to do. They're taught to prepare for the storm. They're taught to think negatively. Whereas a person with a strategy based mindset, a more positive mindset, they look at, okay, let me turn my money into an opportunity to make more money. And so that first and foremost is the delineating factor. That is the separation between the haves and have nots, realistically speaking, is how they approach the money that comes in. If your first thought is, okay, I'm going to squirrel away money that I get, it's almost like when you collected comics back in the day, or when you collected whatever. Now you got a whole house full of stuff that's is not doing anything for you. Versus, let's say let's put this money to work. Let's make it do something for me. And I tell a lot of people this when I'm talking about the initial mindset of money. The average person thinks of money in terms of addition and subtraction, whereas the wealthy looks at money in an aspect of division and multiplication. And so this emergency fund really solidifies that thought process of all you're looking to do is add and subtract from your money. And again, because of the outside sources like inflation, rising cost, interest rates, different things like that, you're playing a losing game and you're putting yourself in a losing formula. Whereas when you start playing the multiplication and division game, now you're looking at exponential growth. You're looking at money is now working on your side. Previously bad sources like interest and inflation, now they're starting to work for you. They're starting to propel your money a lot more rapidly with things like compound interest, things like, again, higher interest rates that you're getting, higher returns on that money. You're putting yourself in a better position. So I say all that to say that you have to get yourself out of the thought process of addition and subtraction and start putting yourself into the mindset of multiplication and division. And once you start to look at your money in that aspect, your money is going to grow exponentially and you're going to have a whole new set of problems now. Now you're going, okay, man, what am I going to do with all this extra money? And that's where you're going to have to get into things like tax planning and stuff like that. But again, that's another conversation for another day.
I love that. I love that. So before we shut down, man, tell me what you got working on the Green Order.
Oh man, I'm excited about, I revamped my ecosystem as far as what we're doing over here at the Green Order. As you guys know, I have the 60-day financial reset. If you don't know, this is your first time tuning into an episode, make sure y'all go back and watch the other episodes so y'all can get some more of these jewels. But my flagship product is the 60-day financial reset, where we are restructuring your finances and your mindset with a 8-week curriculum that's going to help you turn the money that you already have into not only rapidly paying off your debt, but also into working for you in the way it should. But in addition to that, we recently added on our lower tier, we'll call it that, or as Walmart calls it, the value section or the lower price section. I'm offering actual mini courses of different financial lessons for people who may be not ready to put money into the 60-day financial reset. Maybe they're just trying to wrap their head around things, trying to just collect some information. Maybe they don't have as much money to play with, but they want to turn that money to an investment. Invest in your education. So what I'm offering is bi-weekly little micro courses that is going to help you collect a good sense of financial literacy, put you in a place where you understand money from a more strategic place and you're able to make better decisions. And so now, after taking these courses, you will definitely be in a position to where now you have a different mindset about your money. And then we can look at the 60-day financial reset and really propel your finances into a place that is, trust me, it's going to be life changing. So I'm really excited about that addition to the ecosystem. And I'm looking forward to putting that in front of you guys.
That's dope. That's super dope. Hey man, truly appreciate the conversation today. Conversation was always lit. Definitely hoping we open up some minds today. Until next time. Till next time. Hey, I gotta remember that slogan. I think the slogan is "Where your mind meets your money." I'm gonna start closing with. I like that. Where your mind meets your money. I'll be.
Yes, sir.
You can tell I've been editing it too much. Where your mind meets your money. All right,
Oh, yeah.
y'all. We are out of here. Y'all be smooth.
All right. Peace, y'all.
You just tapped into the 7th Sense, where the mind meets the money and the legacy gets built.
It's your boy Money Mike, the financial Thanos, snapping one myth at a time and leaving no financial lies standing.
And I'm Coach R.L. Mind right, money right, legacy locked in. If today's episode gave you game, make sure you rate, review, and share it with someone.
Hey, follow us on all platforms and keep the conversation going, guys. DM us your questions, your myths, and your money wins.
Until next time, think deeper, move smarter, and keep building.
This is the 7th Sense Podcast. We out.